Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 12th Planning Board meeting, Town of Dudley. Okay, my glasses are gonna fog up, so I'm gonna have a couple issues here, just bear with me. Present tonight, we have Bill LePage, member, Steve Wetruba, clerk of the board, Richard Clark, vice chairman, myself, chairman. We have Bill Scanlon, our acting town planner, and we have Michelle Jervis, our acting clerk. All right. Good evening and welcome. So the first order of business is usually minutes from last meeting approval. Looks like they are on our agenda this week as well. Everybody get a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, if it's in order, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes from July 8th, 2020 as presented.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes from July 8th as presented. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have one abstention, okay. So passed 3-0 with one abstention. You weren't here last week or last month, or?
The last meeting I was not, no.
Okay. Moving on. Item B, an A&R plan, Landford Klondike Road.
Nope.
That's on the agenda still, right? Or
No,
did I
that's
get?
the wrong agenda.
That's not.
That's last meeting's agenda.
Am I confused here? I am. Thank you. An A&R plan for 38 Pine Street, Billie Jean Thoreau and Renee L. Mardo Family Trust. Farron has joined us, another member. Welcome, Lou.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
It's all right.
Mr. Chairman, the surveyor couldn't be here tonight, so they asked me if I would sort of present the plan on their behalf.
Yep.
But they're available by phone, so if the board has any questions, you know, I could always call him and get an answer for you.
It looked kind of straightforward when I reviewed the documents.
Right, I think it is pretty straightforward. It's really just a transfer of a small parcel of land from one owner to the adjacent property so that the driveway of the house it serves all falls on one lot. So it's reducing an area, the adjacent lot, by a little bit, but it would still satisfy the requirements for a buildable lot. So we're not creating any new nonconformities here, and it would just be more convenient for the property owner to have the driveway all on his or her own lot. So that's the purpose of the plan.
And to be clear, the driveway is existing?
Yes, it
Both of
is.
them shown, and house is, it was built 30, 40 years ago?
Right.
So this isn't something that just cropped up, this has been something that just simply got overlooked, and it's been this way for a while.
Yeah, I don't know how the driveway got sort of shifted over onto the other lot. Probably you know, just a mistake, an error of on somebody's part, the builder, I would assume. So they just
Anybody
want
have
to
any
straighten that out.
questions or any comments to the A&R plan? Were there any waivers? I think there was a waiver, no, it was just an A&R, right?
Correct.
Okay. Check was received, I think we saw that too.
Yep,
Yep.
everything's all in order.
The board have any questions? No questions?
Nope.
The address is 36 Pine Street, Mr. Chairman, is that
That's correct.
correct? Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the A&R plan as presented for 36 Pine Street, Dudley, Mass.
I have it as 38 Pine Street, but maybe.
Oh, was it
I'm wrong.
38?
Okay.
Yes, that's what the agenda says, sorry.
I've got 36 Pine Street on this acceptance of Dudley Planning Board of submission of A&R plan, page 63.
Yeah, me too.
McClure
I see.
Engineering letter of transmittal.
Okay, I stand corrected.
So it was just a mistakenly put into the agenda with the wrong address. And all the documents indicate that it is 36. Do we have any reason to doubt that? Do we need a revision here, or are we okay?
Yep.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
right, I have a motion and a second to accept the A&R plan for 36 Pine Street. As shown in the documents. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Items, yeah,
Mylar here and the
we need to sign, that's right.
Sharpie. So we need,
So if we get 2 lines of signatures going, one signature line on the plan and the other one for the meeting minutes from last time. We need 2 copies. All right, meeting minutes. That's okay, we just sign any place, right? We're easy. All right, so there's one, sir, if you wanna,
we need 3 paper copies of the Mylar.
if you don't mind sharing the pen?
I'm more concerned about you.
Shel, can I leave that plan with you, with the Mylar?
What are we signing?
Just any
The
place.
applicant now.
Wait, aren't these the minutes?
The minutes from last month, yep.
So if I abstain, I don't sign these, do I?
That's true, yep. Bill, whatever you get time. What do you guys want to get a second set of meeting minutes going around for signature?
There we go.
Just need you to sign.
Okay, sorry.
I'm gonna go up to the plans next, Steve, just kind of keep it going.
Oh, yeah, sure. Up there?
Yep.
There we go.
Give you
I
3
got one.
copies. All right, thank you. When are we gonna go totally electronic there, Bill? No more signatures.
Where's the signature sheet?
There isn't one, just put it any place in the last sheet there, we should be good.
Oh, okay.
Yes. 3 paper copies?
Will we get Lou?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I don't even have a pen.
Yeah. I can give you a pen if you prefer, but
There you go, second copy?
Copy, all right.
What did you just hand me?
Oh, we just signed it on the last
those
page.
just sort of stay in the town hall.
Yeah, the
So,
meeting minutes from last time, that got approved. Last
Kind
month.
of informalized.
Yep.
Think we got everybody over here?
Yeah,
Yep.
it was on there. Yep.
Pass it up to Bill?
Okay,
Yep.
excellent.
Thank you, sir.
All right, now we got on my line.
Yep.
I'll hold on to them.
3.
Yeah.
So the next item is going to be a discussion of the Conservation District. My understanding that Ms. Davis is not here this evening, but we kept this on the agenda just to kind of throw some ideas out here and just a couple initial records, or a couple initial comments, I mean. You guys remember, I think last month we discussed this, there was a Conservation District off of, is it Marsh Road?
Yes, and Hayden Pond Road.
Yep. And there's been a couple of houses there over the years who have been mistakenly built. Somebody messed up. And there's, I think Ms. Davis is the owner of 23 acres, 25 acres, something on that.
16.
16 and a quarter.
16 is a quarter.
Yep.
And then she was inquiring about possibly developing that. And I don't know, I have no idea if that development means one house or a shed, or I don't know. I don't want to speculate here. But the idea was just simply to start the discussion amongst us.
Okay, so I guess the first question I have is, that being rezoned as a conservation district, was that part of all of that rezoning and everything that happened throughout the town as part of the master plan? Do you know? I remember there was a point where that's when like those really large residential areas, zoning areas were created out in,
Maybe the master plan dates from 2000, doesn't it?
Yeah, the master
I
plan
think
is.
this is showing as conservation land going back to 1969.
No, the master plan, I think, was like 2002, but I know they didn't implement the actual zoning changes that were recommended in the master plan until quite a bit after that,
I know they
thought.
did the Res 87 after the master plan. I don't know, I didn't check to see whether there was any recommendation in the master plan on the conservation district,
Okay.
but I could do that. But, you know, as Richard pointed out, that was adopted in 1969, and it allows no development within the district. But unfortunately, the town has allowed development to occur both in this one district and in the district around Mosquito Pond of homes that were built that should not have been built. So there is you know, a fairness question here of this one lot, you know, does not have any development on it and is not allowed to. But, so what do we do about it? Do we just leave it the way it is, or would you like to think about some way to, you know, address this question of what to do with this district?
And in general, what do you think our options are here? I mean,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, point of information, this is 61A, as I understand it, I'm talking to the assessor, and that restricts it to an agricultural use, and I think the use in this particular instance is wood, that they're harvesting some amount of wood
Yes.
from there. The thing that I'm a little uncertain about is, as has been stated, this apparently dates back to 1969, so we're talking 51 years or so. 61A is not in perpetuity, that needs to be renewed periodically. So somewhere along the way, somebody has been renewing this. And again, 51 years of that happening suggests that there's another side to this issue, apart from the one that we're hearing of in terms of Ms. Williams/Davis. if you will.
So the,
I might be incorrect, but I thought on the 61A, that part of having your property in a 61A, you get tax breaks
Right.
on the property
It's
taxes.
currently assessed at about $1,350. Fair market value would be about $137,000 plus.
But that at some point, if you wanted to develop it, you could take it out of a 61A, but you would be responsible for all those years back taxes, the difference in the taxes that you would have paid.
I don't know that you have to go back that far. not
I
to
think it's
51
5 years. It's a
But
5-year rollback,
There
I
is a
think.
rollback there somewhere. But
How
to
many
your
years?
point, this can be taken out of conservation if it is 61A. It doesn't, again, it is not a permanent thing.
Well, it can be taken out of 61A, but it can't be developed under zoning.
Right, not now. Not
Correct.
currently zoned, no.
Right.
But I think the first obstacle would be the 61A.
Yes, when that happens, the town also has the right of first refusal, so the town could buy this property if it felt its value of conservation
Town
was
has
significant.
right of first refusal, and the town can delegate that first refusal to someone else, which might
Correct.
be, in this case, the Audubon Society, which abuts the property.
So, I mean, it's really a zoning question. The conservation district does not allow development. So if you think that it's fair to allow this landowner to develop that property in some way, we need to address that through zoning. So some of the options are you could rezone it to something else, like a Res 87, in which case it would fall under those requirements. Or you could leave it in conservation but allow, say, a single-family home on a large lot, say something like 5 acres, in which case that 16-acre parcel could accommodate 3 homes. Or you could say that each parcel could have a single-family home but not specify a lot size so that this large parcel could have 1 home on it, essentially. So there are ways to address this through zoning that we could explore if you felt that it was important to provide some fairness to this landowner that, you know, she doesn't have
Chairman,
today.
with all due respect to Mr. Scanlon, I think there's more information that we have to have available to us before we were to act or go any further.
This is just an initial conversation.
Right,
I-
yeah.
Yeah.
The 61A stuff is new to me, quite frankly, so I was glad to hear that information. What Bill just got done saying, which I'm calling a conservation with an exception, where it stays as a conservation district, but you allow a residence on there with a certain amount of land. Is there precedent for that? I'm assuming
Well,
yes.
You know, not many towns have a conservation district on privately owned property. So that by
I get-
itself was kind of unique for Dudley.
I guess my question here is, because you brought up in the interest of fairness that we might consider doing something. But my question is, how has this been unfair? Because this is something that has been this way for so many years, and now someone's coming forward just now and asking for, I mean, has she tried to develop this in the past and not been able to do it, or?
She has made various attempts over the years and has kind of gotten frustrated and I think given up. Feels like she was not treated fairly when she came forward before. The last time was about 2005, I think, so that's about 15 years ago. So to answer your question, I think it's unfair in two ways. One is the Supreme Court has made several rulings that says that a town can't use zoning to prevent development because that's considered a taking. And if the town does that, then it's required to pay fair compensation to the owner for that land.
So who put that land into conservation?
Town meeting,
Town meeting.
yes.
Okay. At town meeting, did anyone from that, well, I guess that's not an answer you could probably give me. Did anybody speak against it from the family, or was there somebody?
I don't know.
Would the property owners have to be okay with that at that time? I mean, do they have to give their
No,
assent?
you don't
or
have to
just-
approve, you don't get the ability to approve zoning for your property. That's up to the town to decide.
Okay.
I believe, Bill, that you had provided us with some documentation with regards to a meeting, I don't know, I think it might have been town meeting actually, where a number of butters or people in the area had commented, but the owners, and I'm not sure, or clear in my own mind who the owners of record are, but no one purporting to be the owners made comment at that meeting, as I recall, the notes that you'd provided us.
That was a public hearing, I think, on.
Public hearing, was it, not
was
town
zoning
meeting?
change.
Okay. And there
For the
was at
planning
one
board.
point, something on the warrant regarding town meeting, possibly something going before town meeting, but that was never actually done.
That's right.
I found it interesting in that the minutes for one of those meetings included a question from Mr. Wetruba, like in 2005.
Oh, no kidding?
Yes, you were on top of this for a long time.
So, Bill, what would that area have been zoned if it wasn't conservation? What is predominantly, is that far enough out that that would be in the Res 80?
87?
Yeah,
87?
the adjacent zoning is Res 43 and Res 87. So you could rezone it to a residential district, in which case, that 16-acre parcel, depending on the minimum lot size, could have 7 to 10 house lots on it.
So I guess probably we need to hear more from the applicant as far as what her thoughts are on what she wants to do there.
Is there any formal application process in this? Is this just more a complaint that we're addressing?
I would say the latter. Yeah, she's looking for, she wants to, discuss this issue because she's been very frustrated over time that
So
she
you're right,
can't
we
do
definitely need
anything
to
with
hear
this
from the
property.
person making the complaint.
Yeah, because I mean, if someone's asking to put a subdivision in there and roll back to like Res 15 lot sizes or something like that, I think, I for one probably have a problem with that.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. Who is the owner of record? I know it was an Elliott Williams.
Well, I believe there are 3 sisters.
They are the owners of record.
Yes.
So my thought then is that one of them must be renewing the 61A.
Sure. As you pointed out, it's an annual renewal, so
So,
Somebody has to be doing it.
Are the sisters at odds here?
not that I
If
know
one is
of.
renewing, if someone is renewing the 61A, that would preclude any development.
I mean, I don't see why anyone would object to putting it under 61A to keep the taxes down.
All right, so they've done this as just a holding pattern until they could.
That would be my
That's
assumption.
what we are assuming the thought
Right.
was.
Yeah, I
mean,
can't
we're
speak
taking
for her,
a
but sure.
big leap of faith when we make that assumption.
What was that, that just reminded me of something else. What was that letter that there was a reference to, that the sister who's who's asking about changing this was, I believe, disputing the existence of a letter from the original owner?
I spoke with Jean Davis today. She said her father never sent a letter in for this particular property. So somehow, somebody thought there was a letter that was sent, but she denied it. So I don't have any answer to that question, Steve.
Oh, so you don't have a letter?
I don't have a letter, no.
Oh, okay. So she was concerned that somebody had sent a letter in? That-
She was concerned that somebody had said there was a letter sent, when in fact, there doesn't appear to be a letter at all.
And what did this supposed letter say that she was so concerned about?
I think the letter said that the father would be okay if it was zone conservation. But she claims that that was never the case.
Oh. There, Mr. Wetruba, from my understanding, and speaking to someone who was formerly employed in this area, in the town hall, that apparently some documentation is believed to have existed or to exist with some of the personnel changes of late. Apparently, that is not readily available at this point. Again, I'm going back to the thought that we need more information before we definitely, you know, start to do anything about this particular issue and all of the parties
No,
involved.
but it was a good introductory just to get the 61A out there, to get some of the ideas of the zoning, and just to start airing this out a little bit. I mean,
You know, really, I don't think it even needs to be in 61A because there is no development potential of the property. So its assessed value would be quite low because you can't develop it anyway under current zoning.
But the 61A isn't in our jurisdiction. That would have to be something that the owner would petition
Yes.
for and has nothing to do with us. So
Correct.
if it's there or not, really isn't our concern. What's more of a concern is just the zoning issue itself.
Right.
I think this, but the discussion about the 61A, to Mr. Clark's point, is valid, that someone renewing the 61A might be an indication of someone in the family interested in keeping that as a conservation or undevelopable plot.
Or you could see it just the opposite. What choice do they have? They can't use the land, they can't develop the land, they can't build a house in the land, so why not use the 61A until it
I
gets
see your
resolved?
point. Might as well park it in a 61A and avoid paying the higher taxes if you're not going to be
Right.
able to develop it.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's also very interesting what you said, Bill, about it's not usual to have private property being zoned as is conservation. I mean, that
Right.
right there is kind of a, if we're the only area in the whole Commonwealth that does that, it's gonna be tough to have legal precedent on our side.
Yeah, because usually in those kind of situations, it's usually if a farmer's got a farm and he decides that he's no longer going to farm it and he's going to, you know, he doesn't want to see a house ever built on it ever again. Customarily, usually, like you said, he'll put it in 61A, but then at some point, there'll usually be some kind of a transfer into some sort of a trust, right? And then it's a conservation.
And the heirs come into the picture and
Yeah.
at some point perhaps, yeah.
Wow. So
What
if
do
you
you
have
think-
any land, you better develop it before they,
You think this is something we should put on the agenda for September and see if we can get Ms. Davis or one of her sisters, or their sisters in here to discuss, or?
Well, I think the way we left it is that she would get back in touch with me once her sister returns from overseas. I
Okay,
guess she's been kind of stuck because of the COVID issue. But she does want to come before the planning board at
okay.
some point, so.
Mr. Chairman, could we leave it with Mr. Scanlon to see if he can flesh out some of the questions or come up with some answers to some of the things that I think we've raised here tonight, as far as like where the 61A renewals are coming from?
Okay.
That,
Yeah.
one question that's kind of high on my list of
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
right now.
it'd be great to have two or more of the sisters in here, actually, so that they could be at a recorded meeting, making the statements that we need to hear about.
Right. We can-
They might know some past history that we don't know, or, so, yeah, either or. I mean, I would like to continue with this. I would like to see if this can be resolved. But obviously, as we pointed out, we need their participation.
Yeah, especially with three sisters being involved and they're not, some of them are overseas and there's,
I married one of three sisters.
need more information.
I'm every one of four sisters.
All right. Moving on. Acceptance of the preliminary plan, Butler's Way. And then set the date for a possible presentation. So this was a, yeah, oh, you got it there?
Which one is it?
That's it?
Butler's Way goes by apparently a couple of other names as well.
Well, Butler's Way does not exist right now, I don't think.
Right.
I think it is a, if anything, a paper street. Bad, I think it's simply a development off of JB Avenue. Yep. In a Res 15 district?
Yes,
Yeah, in a Res 15 district. So the plan is showing 6 new houses in the vacant center portion of a block. It's on 3.33 acres. They are asking for some waivers.
So as you know, the point of a preliminary plan is to get feedback from boards and departments in town about this proposed development scheme, so that when they get to the definitive plan stage, they will take those comments and concerns into account when they do the final design.
Yep.
So there's no legal standing of a preliminary plan. You can approve or deny it, but they can still come in with a definitive plan that you'll have to act on. So this is just advisory, informational purposes. Graves Engineering will do a peer review of this plan for us. I sent it to the conservation agent, who said he would comment on it as well. Sent it to other departments in the town. So I think tonight is just a recognition that the plan has been submitted, that you can accept it, and set a meeting date to discuss it with the applicant and anybody else who wants to speak about it.
I brought up the waivers. If you guys look at tab D, the first page there from Summit Engineering and Survey, they're asking for 5 waivers, and the last 3, the minimum width of the right-of-way, open space, and sidewalks. They're all looking for waivers on, so the reason being this is simply so tight. And I think the plan shows, the site plan shows that, the tightness of everything.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, I think we're fortunate that we have an expert in this area with us this evening, Mr. Perrin. In regards to that first waiver, such section 4A, streets 1G, and that is the Town of Dudley Rules and Regulations governing subdivision of land. The request is allowing property line not to be rounded, there's something wrong with the language there. Not to being rounded at street intersection due to the existing lot lines at intersection of parcel and JB Ave. Mr. Perrin, I'm curious as to what your thoughts on that might be.
I mean, I don't really see a problem with that one. According to the plan, it's gonna be rounded anyways at the mouth of the road.
That's the dash line there?
Yes, so it says allowing the property line not being rounded at the street intersection due to existing lot lines, intersection of the parcel of JB. I don't see an issue with it. That's just my opinion. But I think it should probably, the problem is if they don't allow, if we want them to round the property line, that might dictate how that throat of the road is developed as well. So I don't know if they don't want it rounded because they might not have enough square feet per lot. Any thoughts on that, Bill?
If I could chime in real quick, my understanding is that the 2 houses at the mouth of the road, the Jeffrey Smith property and the Haggerty property, are existing houses with existing property lines.
Yep.
And they probably don't have the width of that easement to do that rounding, because they're taking property from these 2 owners, which they most likely haven't been able to purchase or haven't tried to purchase. That's just my initial take on it, and I'm just speculation.
You really should, at the beginning of a road like that, it should be rounded though, for plowing purposes.
Well, they are showing a radius, a curved radius.
This is what they're showing. Are they looking to not do that?
I think they're talking about just the property lines.
Property lines?
Not the right-of-way.
If I may, going back again to the Town of Dudley Rules and Regulations governing the subdivision of land, the G that's referenced here, it reads, property lines at street intersections shall be rounded or cut back to provide for a curb radius of not less than 30 feet. So what we're doing is going pretty drastically away from that in terms of what the town has established, if you will, for rules and regulations.
Yeah, it appears like Dan said, because of them existing parcels, they can't cut it, they can't round it more, because the property lines are right there.
I'm also a little bit confused because it says JB Ave, and there's some dashed lines. It says public 40-foot wide. When you scale what's being shown with the dashed lines, it may be 25. If you go to the two thicker black lines outside of that, it's scaling probably close to 45 feet. So that may be the 40 with the total right-of-way, but there's something there that to me isn't making sense, because they're showing,
Yeah.
they're showing that rounding to a small 20-foot wide street that doesn't exist.
Right.
Or maybe that's a street and then the rest of it is the right-of-way?
Yeah, I think that the dash line indicates the edge of pavement, and the solid line
Ah.
indicates the right-of-way width.
I see what you're saying.
So it's a
Okay.
40-foot wide right-of-way, is what they're showing. I didn't measure the paved width, but probably 20, 25 feet,
Yep,
something
that
like
makes more sense now when you say that,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
So that dotted line, where it says existing driveway on that lot, that says Haggerty,
Yes.
so that dotted line right there, that's the existing, it's like, it's, right now, it's kind of like that house's driveway?
Yeah.
So there must be an easement there? I guess the easement just goes away if they create a road, is that how that would work?
Yeah, I don't understand that either. I saw that in the plan. It looks like that between the Haggerty and Smith house, there's a driveway that circles into the Plan North Haggerty house, and that the proposed way or road seems to be going over that. So I don't know if they had built that
The drive,
possible easement or how that was. Maybe the Haggerty house actually faces on what was supposed to be Butler? Maybe
I
that's
think
the
it
first-
looks like the driveway for the Haggerty property currently goes out to JB Avenue.
It does. It looks like the dotted line is existing.
Right.
So if you follow the dotted
Oh, I see what
line
you're saying.
off of JB Ave, it turns in, and it turns into the house on Haggerty.
Yep, I see
That
it now.
means the house, Jeffrey Smith's house, his driveway, I would have to assume is on
JB.
JB, because it's not showing, so that, the only driveway that's in the, right away would be the one on for Haggerty.
yeah, that's
You can see the
existing.
dotted lines, and you can see how the driveway kind of stops and then turns into the house.
There's
Well,
a
it must
note
be
there
an
that says
existing
tie
right of
existing
way.
driveway to new road.
Yeah, that's odd.
Well, these are good questions, to think about and to ask the applicant.
Is the radius of this cul-de-sac, is that within the specs that the fire chief likes to see? I remember we've had this discussion in the past.
I'm assuming it conforms to the regulations. I don't
We don't have
see a
comment from the fire
request for a
chief
waiver.
specifically, though, at this point.
If it's 100 foot, it's within the standard.
It scales at under 100.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to get back to what are, again, what I put
Scales at
offline as being the
75.
Dudley rules and regulations, if you will, calling for a curve radius of not less than 30 feet. What is this giving us in terms of a radius, if it's giving us anything?
It looks pretty close to 30. They're not asking for a waiver from that.
On the second page here, where they're showing this, it looks like I'm seeing a 60-foot radius going out. See that line? Right to the left of where it says Lot 4, there's an arrow,
Yeah,
60-foot R. So that's a 60-foot radius, but that's 60 feet to the, that's not the paved surface, right? That's,
That is the paved surface, right? So it's a 100-foot diameter.
You're talking a lot 4,
Just a
Mr.
100-foot
Wetruba?
diameter, sir.
yeah.
100-foot diameter.
I guess my question, I'm still back on JB Ave in terms of that intersection. Trying to figure that one out.
You're ahead of me. Well, I think the intersection with JB Ave, if it's the road, I think that's a good question for the applicant, or to try to figure out exactly what he's proposing there.
All right, then we
I see your
have
point. I
to
mean,
table that particular.
well, this is just initial discussion.
Yeah.
This isn't really a public hearing. We're just looking at it and getting our initial take on it. So your initial take is that you want to make sure that the radius of that intersection is to town standards, pretty much.
Or
Yep.
to have some clear thought as to
Yep.
why it wouldn't necessarily be.
Exactly. So we also need the widths of the cul-de-sac, of the road. I would have some questions about the proposed basin. Got the swale between the two houses, and then you have a basin behind, 3 or 4 houses. Don't know where that basin releases to, how the neighbors feel about it. I wouldn't purchase lot 6, but that's just me.
The following question too, the number 2's waiver request allowing proposed roads cross-section instead of the town's Dudley's standard cross-section because of the limited area at the beginning of the proposed roadway.
Yeah, so, I mean, based on, again, a preliminary view, they've got a retaining wall going along the Jeffrey Smith residence there. So it looks like it goes down pretty steep initially, which, again, I need some input from the applicant to try to figure out why, but I mean, everybody knows that you don't want a nice steep hill at an intersection there. You need to have a nice level spot so you can actually stop your car and proceed safely.
I know right where this is, and it's pretty flat going in there, which is the retaining wall I'm baffled by. Seems like we have a lot of questions for the applicant on this. Instead of guessing, we should probably have them come in and answer them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the last time I went by there and looked at that it was pretty, like you said, it was
Yeah,
pretty
it's
flat. I
flat,
thought it was
right
like the lawn just came right up to,
To that driveway.
yeah, that
Two
you
brick-
wouldn't even know that was there.
There's 2 brick houses there, aren't they?
Yeah,
Brick construction.
on either side, yeah.
Yeah, on the second page, there's a proposed Road A profile. It actually shows it going from JB uphill before it goes downhill towards the base at the end of the cul-de-sac. If I'm reading that correctly.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And this could be distorted for scale purposes. I mean, that could be a lot flatter. I don't know.
Well, the grades are pretty shallow there,
Yep.
2 to 3%.
So I don't, if it's only 2 or 3%, then I don't understand why they're asking for a waiver
I
there.
know, 2% is
So that's-
standard.
Yeah, for the cross-section, I'm not sure what they really mean by that.
Oh, it could be from side to side, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, obviously, we do have some questions. So, am I correct, we're going to simply accept the plan as receiving it,
Correct,
and then ask Graves Engineering to do a peer review?
correct.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, on the exceptions number 4, I'm not quite sure, Bill, why they're asking for one there, because as I understand that the zoning bylaws, as far as the open space is concerned, it's a minimum of 10 acres. And this is less than 10 acres.
Well, the subdivision control law allows for the town to require set aside of open space within a
But I think
development.
the requirement was, if
for
I
a
read
period
it,
of
was
3
10
years.
acres minimum. And this is how long, how many acres?
6.3?
So the town must have that stipulation in its subdivision regulations, and they're asking for a waiver of that.
All right.
So they don't have to provide that.
Maybe you could just point that out to me later, because what I was reading in the zoning bylaws indicated 10 acres minimum. But all in favor of more open space, no problem there. And I
It's a-
do have a serious issue with the section number 5, if you will, no sidewalks. We, at some point later this evening, will be discussing Dudley Complete Streets policy, and I think that flies directly in the face of where that is taking us. I know it's not formally approved yet, but it has been presented, and I think favorably received by the selectmen at this point. So there seems to be some momentum, if you will, behind that. I've noticed during the pandemic a tremendous increase in the number of people walking, jogging, walking dogs, and riding bicycles. And one of the things that is abundantly clear to me as a pedestrian is the lack of sidewalks in Dudley. And if we don't start putting some of those in place now, we'll never get them. And I know we had an issue with two-sided sidewalks with Mr. Haynes, and the concession was that he would have one side at least. I think we should follow through with that in terms of trying to get as much in the way of sidewalks as we can in the town, and hopefully be consistent with this Dudley Complete Street policy that's coming.
Sure.
Yep, all good
That's
points.
reasonable. To answer your question on the open space set aside, Section 4C says that the applicant has to set aside a minimum of 5%, but not less than 1 acre
Okay.
for a period of 3 years.
That's
for
zoning board?
Open space.
I was referencing section 3.05.02.
Yeah, that's zoning, that's a different standard.
Different standard?
This is the subdivision requirement.
All right.
So they're
I
asking
guess
you-
I'm not seeing where these two agree with one another. Maybe you can clarify that for me at a
I
later date.
think that's the town's open space zoning provision, the cluster zoning bylaw.
Which takes precedent, precedence.
Well, they're not proposing that kind of a development.
I'm
So
sorry?
They're not proposing an open space development. They're proposing a conventional subdivision.
Okay,
So it's the requirement of the subdivision regulations that applies.
all right. Thank you.
I don't know if I'm gonna be here next meeting, so to piggyback what he said, I would hold this subdivision to the same standard that we held Mr. Hayes to. So he should have one sidewalk that goes down the road and completely around the cul-de-sac. And then at the throat of the road where the radius is, we had Mr. Hayes do granite. So this way the plows don't beat up the asphalt. And that all the sidewalks need to be ADA compliant. I noticed in their things, one of the things they wrote that there's no sidewalks on JB Ave. But it doesn't matter what we did 50 years ago or 100 years ago, is what's the standard today? So they need to be held to that standard. Because the school bus probably might not go down this new
No,
road.
they're probably not.
It might drop them off at JB Ave, and those kids gotta walk down that road.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, another concern is access to this property when it's built. Some of the access, I'm sure, will be coming off of Mason Road. Mason Road isn't much wider than a driveway in a couple of spots. I mean, that is a bottleneck. We've also got a subdivision proposed down on Jesse Road. At some point, there's a tipping point here. How much traffic can Mason Road handle? You know, I realized this road was in before Amazon, before UPS, and before FedEx, and all of the things that are now being delivered to people's homes. But I've seen, and just this morning, I saw a dog walker and a pedestrian on Mason Road. And every time I've gone by and seen them of late, the things that come back to my mind are the fatality here in Webster not that long ago of a pedestrian, and another serious injury to a pedestrian out in Oxford. And obviously, there's no sidewalks on Mason Road. What have you got, 10-foot width in terms of a school bus, effective width? And if you put one of those out there with one of those FedEx vans, where's the pedestrian going to go? Hope you have a parachute, buddy, because you're in trouble. I mean, you're getting to a point where how much more can you put on top of that? And now you'd say, well, okay, they don't need Mason Road, but yes, they do, because the school is down on Mason Road, the fire station's down on Mason Road, the main thoroughfare in town, West Main Street, is Mason Road access. People are going to be using Mason Road to get to and from this property. And again, there's a tipping point here. I don't know when we've reached, we may have gone past it, but how much more can you keep putting on top of that?
Just to be clear, though, JB Ave does continue out and goes out to,
It does.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to go to the fire station for some reason and get a burning permit in the spring, you're not going to go that way, I suspect. Your first inclination wouldn't be. If your kid's in school, your first inclination that you got to call that they're sick. Let's say the schools are even open at this point. The kid is sick. You're not necessarily going to go around town and, through Southbridge, Oxford, and, over the woods and through the,
but I'm
God
going
knows
by
where.
memory here, but I don't think there's any existing sidewalks on JB Ave.
No, there aren't.
And I'm almost positive there aren't any existing sidewalks on Mason Road where JB Ave comes out.
The only existing sidewalk on Mason Road is up from the fire station or the intersection up to the school.
Correct. So I mean,
That's
I
it.
understand the spirit of wanting to hold the developer to the same, standard, but I just don't know how forcing a developer to put a sidewalk on this short cul-de-sac is gonna really solve any of these problems as far as pedestrian.
I understand the point, Mr. Wetruba, but I would submit that at least as a beginning, the town has been remiss in terms of, it's not 5,000 people any longer. We've been remiss in terms of sidewalks. And I think, as Mr. Perrin mentioned earlier, something that was done 50 years ago, we shouldn't be tied to that any longer. I think the time is, and again, going back to what I think is on our agenda, complete street policy, we have to acknowledge that there are needs that haven't been addressed, and if we don't start to address them, they never will be addressed.
So Bill, from what you see here, do you think that they have enough room to squeeze in sidewalks on one side?
Well, you know, you have subdivision regulations that they have to comply with, and if they do, then you are bound to approve the plan. They can request waivers, which you have the discretion to deny or modify as you wish. So it's really up to the board to decide whether sidewalks are appropriate or not, and if you think they are, then you can require them.
Well, I think what they're asking is a waiver of something that is already on file, if you will, as a requirement.
Well, they're asking for
So
waivers
we're not
for this plan.
creating something out of.
If it wasn't a
whole
requirement, they wouldn't have to ask for a waiver.
cloth. Right, so in other words, it's already there. They're asking for a deviation from that. All we would be saying is we're going to adhere to what is the current rule and regulation as it exists today.
So you can hold them to that if you wish.
All right, so you've had discussion on this preliminary plan, Butler's Way. Looking forward, do we need a motion to accept this? Bill?
Yes.
We need a motion. So looking for a motion to accept the plan as received, and then set a possible public hearing date for either our first or our second meeting in September. What is the board's pleasure?
We have 45 days to act on the plan.
45, so
So
second will be pushing it, so we should have the first meeting in September then.
I would say so.
All right. Our acceptance, if we were to vote to accept, does not indicate agreement. Is that
Correct.
correct?
But we received it.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to accept the plan as presented, and note that there are issues that still need to be addressed. I'd like that in the record.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, there is a motion and a second to accept the plan for, preliminary plan for Butler's Way as received, and duly noted that there are issues that need to be clarified. Did I get that wording all right?
That sounds fine. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. So the next item, it's not getting easier, guys. Follow-up discussion to the Misty Meadows request to patch potholes. I believe we heard from town council on
Right.
this.
Yeah, town council sort of recommended that you not approve use of the security money to fix potholes, because that's basically routine maintenance, and that's not what security is for. It's intended to provide money to finish the road if the developer can't do so. So to use it for maintenance this time and then maybe again in a couple of years, she thought would set a precedent that a lot of other subdivisions would come in and want to do the same thing. But if you felt that it was a legitimate request, I mean, I think it's within your power to say, okay, you could use it for that purpose. But, you know, there are those issues to consider and decide whether that makes sense as a policy.
Can you refresh my memory? How much do we have in the escrow fund?
11,000 or so,
11,000.
yep.
Which will not finish the road.
So what can it be used for? I mean, the road's not gonna be finished, correct?
I don't know. I don't know what.
Isn't
the-
this-
The developer is bankrupt, right? It's no longer a business.
Correct. Steve, to answer your question, I think what would have to happen is that the property owners would have to agree to a betterment program to raise the money to finish the road, and the town could, you know, use the remaining balance on the escrow to sort of lower their cost.
And who would start that process of organizing the,
There has to be an agreement of 50% of the property owners along the way to create a betterment program for a street.
so they basically on their own have to form this
Yes.
agreement, and it's
Correct.
not something that the town starts or anything?
Right.
Chairman, I can confirm that there is a pothole there. A little field trip. There is definitely a pothole, and obviously, as we get into the winter weather, I'm sure it's not going to get any smaller. Do you know that when this developer went bankrupt, and went to bankruptcy court, did the residents do anything, take any legal action in trying to get any money? I understand that the town of Oxford was successful in getting enough money to finish their end of this, but would the residents still have any legal action pending, or did they take any legal action, try to recover anything?
Not that I could find,
No. And the town of Dudley did not either.
correct.
Would the people there actually end up getting together and hiring a private contractor to finish the road? Or would the town finish the road and then assess a betterment on all of those people for the cost?
Yeah, so the point of the betterment is to defray the cost over time, so you can pay that back over a 20-year period.
Yeah,
If the landowners wanted to get together to hire somebody privately, they'd probably have to pay the whole cost up front.
okay. So the idea would be the town would bear the initial cost of having the road finished,
Well, the town would probably hire somebody to do the work, I would assume.
but still the
They'd
town
go out
would
to
bear
bid.
the initial cost.
Right.
And essentially, it's like they're offering a low-interest,
Yes.
long-term loan to cover, okay, I understand that. So now, let's say that all happens. Does the town have the ability now to take that $11,000 and roll that into the project to finish?
Sure, I mean, that's what it's for, is to finish the road, so
Okay.
why not?
If the betterment program is the route chosen, does that have to go before a town meeting for approval?
I'd have to check the town bylaw. Do you recall, Michelle? Right. But does each individual project have to go to town meeting?
Okay, so who have you heard from that has said, we need somebody to come down here and fix this pothole?
We got a request from Mr. Donahue, who's one of the residents up on the
Okay,
street.
so could we, as the planning board, if we all agree, could we have Mr. Scanlon reach out to Mr. Donahue and explain what would need to be done, that they would need to come together, and you probably would want to make sure you mention that $11,000 could be used if they follow through with it.
We have had that discussion with him already. He doesn't think he can get 50% of the residents to agree to it.
Well, that's unfortunate. But I think town council has pretty much made it clear our hands are tied, because absolutely right, would open up a can of worms.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we'd be just wasting $11,000 just to put lipstick on a pig.
Right, and you said that, I remember you explaining that before, Lou, that's just.
We'd be better off just denying it,
Yeah.
and letting $11,000 sit there, and then when they finally decide it's time, they've had enough.
When the road
We
gets
apply
bad enough
that.
and they can get to 50%?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how bad a road can get, though, and still, I mean, some of those
It's
roads.
like a cancer. Once you get one pothole and it starts alligator and it just spreads.
Private roads in Worcester that are like,
The problem
Oh,
is,
you need an Abrams tank to go down.
you start pricing things by the square foot, the larger it is, the cheaper it is, volume. When you start doing those small potholes, you can eat up $11,000 just like that. So it's not economical for the town. As much as I feel for them, and it's not their fault, it's just not economical.
If I may, I understand that the town does plow that road, is that correct? So they are receiving some town services that,
Whoa! I was kind of waiting for that.
Wasn't me.
Oh, this leg was off and it was
Oh,
leaning.
oh.
I didn't
Breathing
wanna
too
touch
heavy
it for
over
fear
there.
that it would get worse, but
it is an unfortunate situation, and I have a lot of sympathy for the residents, but
Oh, I see what you're telling me, it's this big
I
piece
don't know that we have a solution for them right now, if they don't have that 50% number.
So we have to vote on using the money or not, right? Is that what you're asking us
I
to
think
vote on that money?
if you wanted to use the money, you'd have to vote for it. If you don't want to use it, I don't think any action is required.
yeah, I think that before we vote on anything, I want to point out, and I'm not sure the statement is accurate, so Bill, if you could help me. If I read the documents correctly, there was about $196,000 in the Oxford escrow account at 2008-ish, when they started to talk to the developer who was going bankrupt, and they were able to use that to leverage to get their roads complete, right?
Mm-hmm.
this is just conjecture, but to me, it almost appears that if we only have 11,000 in an escrow fund and they had 196, maybe that we had more than 11,000 in 2008. Maybe we didn't. I don't know when this development was finished, but I think it was accepted as a public way in 2016 in Oxford, right? 2000.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
And I'm assuming that this $11,000 has been the sum since before 2016.
Yes.
So I may be wrong in implying this, and I'm sorry if I am, but it kind of ties into some of the conversations that we've had in general, where developers come in and every time they get 1 square foot of the road done, they want all of a sudden to get money released. And then that happens until we have nothing left and absolutely no leverage. And this is a good example. If this speculation that I'm going through right now actually has some merit, if Oxford can find a way to hold this money in escrow until the full amount until that road is finished, there is no reason why we can't in the future, and make sure that this does not happen again.
And Mr. Perrin made that point more than once.
Correct. Yep.
That it's a problem.
Yes. So having said that, and granted, there's speculation in there, so I don't want to make any false accusations, but the implication seems to be that we now have precedent for a neighboring community to start holding back that escrow until we're sure that's going to get, the street's going to get finished.
That's
and the
also
resident-
why, like, just to go back to this other plan, it's important that when we review these plans, if they're doing like an 1.5-inch binder coat, it's very important that this board said, no way. You need to have a minimum of 2.5 inches, because that binder usually sits anywhere from 5 to 10 years. So it's more than just making sure we hold the bond, it's also ensuring that we hold them to a higher standard.
And Lou, not to jump ahead, but that makes me think about, when we get into item 7 on the agenda here, subsection 3, planning board suggestions for zoning amendments. I really hope we could talk about those things that, like you brought up with Lyons Estates. Maybe, like you said, maybe that should be part of our subdivision laws.
Should be.
Our regulations, so that we don't have to ask for that every time. It should be just an automatic. I don't want to jump ahead, but, just, keep to the agenda, but when we get to that, we'll bring it up.
So does the board want to take any action on item number 5? Misty Meadows request, patch potholes?
As bad as I feel for them, the best interest of the town is not to spend any of that money.
Board concur?
Yep.
All right, so moving on to item number 6, review and possible vote on draft of the complete streets policy.
So the town of Dudley is entering the Complete Streets program, and there are 3 steps in that process. The first is to adopt a Complete Streets policy. The second step is to prepare a prioritization plan, and the third step is to actually apply for funding for particular streets in town. And once the town is in the program, they're eligible for $400,000 for a particular project. So the Complete Streets policy, as I've sent you, and as you can see, it really commits the town to implementing complete streets in the design and construction of roadways in town. So complete streets mean that the streets are designed for all kinds of users, whether they're pedestrians, bicyclists, wheelchair users. It implies safety, crosswalks, sidewalks, bike lanes, a whole bunch of things are possible under the complete streets design principles. And what we're committing the town to do is to, whenever the town gets money for a road project, to try to implement complete streets. There are a number of exceptions in here, so if it doesn't make sense on a particular street, you don't have to do it. But in most cases, I think it's considered good practice to try to implement these concepts. And so the town is, at least, the town administrator and the selectmen are very interested in this idea, and think it's worthwhile for the town to go through this process. There is a provision in here to make the planning board the Complete Streets Committee in town, and it commits the board to a number of different actions in terms of holding meetings, reviewing progress, trying to work with the highway department, or whenever grants were applied for new roadways, to make sure that those designs include these kinds of principles. And when streets are improved or repaired, to do what you can to make sure that they adhere to these standards. So I think I wanted to bring it to you for that purpose, to get your buy-in to this idea, to have you agree to be the Complete Streets Committee. If you decided you didn't want that responsibility, the town could create a separate committee of, representatives from different boards and departments. It was my opinion, though, that you were very interested in roads, and this kind of thing, I think, is something that you feel strongly about, and that I thought you would agree to be that body that would oversee this program and evaluate progress over time, do measurements of success, and whatever's called for in the policy. So that's kind of where we're at. The selectmen are the official signatory of the policy. If you approve this document, they'll take it up at their next meeting and hopefully approve it as well.
Yeah, when you first brought this up, I was excited about it. This is something I think that gets into something that you were, I was still talking.
I'd like to call the
Okay,
board's
if it's
attention.
okay if I just finish what I was
sure,
saying?
that's
Thank you. So I was excited about it and looking forward to it. I did read through the document, and I didn't spend enough time on it to actually make any comments. So just finish up real quick, is just want to go in front of the board and ask you, do we have time until the next board meeting to review this and further, or is this something that we need to get on the selectmen's agenda ASAP?
There was no deadline on it. If you felt you wanted more time, I think the selectmen could wait. There's no great urgency to it.
Okay, so it's just a comment I threw out there. Sorry, Richard.
Mr. Chairman, I echo your enthusiasm. I think this is a good idea. I think this is very much worthwhile and something that's long overdue in the town of Dudley. What I would do is call the board's attention to page 3, I believe, under implementation. There are some responsibilities that pertain to the planning board. There's a paragraph under implementation. The second paragraph enumerates some of those. And then if you look to the last page under evaluation, the planning board and its responsibilities are again mentioned. In other words, the planning board is the acting local Complete Streets Committee. So we would be wearing perhaps another hat and a half, if you will. And I just would ask that everybody give that careful consideration before we sign up for something. Again, I would be very disappointed if we didn't sign up for it, but I think we want to go into this with our eyes open in terms of what the responsibilities and the involvement from the planning board will be.
I do want to point out to that effect that we do have a stop dead time in our meetings at 10 o'clock, right? This extra responsibility, we're still stopping at 10 o'clock, guys, so we just need to be a little more productive.
I think this goes hand in hand with our job on the planning board, and I think this is gonna help with a lot of frustration we have with these developments and the issues with the developers walking away, and I think this is gonna be a great thing.
Agreed.
And I would just comment and say, to Bill's comment about, well, that if the planning board doesn't do it, then they could form another committee. Who are you going to find to step forward and volunteer to be on a committee? We've got all these vacancies in town as it is now. Nobody's stepping forward. Nobody wants to spend their, evenings here doing this kind of stuff. So if we want to see it done, I think the planning board's going to have to do it. Just my opinion.
Good point. Lou, anything?
I agree. I think the planning board should be a part of this, but they should also, if we're gonna adopt this, we also have to review, what the town's bylaw is on subdivisions. That needs to be updated. Those specs are completely outdated, because we need to be able to give these contractors some guidance on what our minimum standard is. And I think that needs to be completely changed, because I think our standard is 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches, and it should be 2.5 and 2. And like in the city of Worcester, Bill LePage can testify to this, it is a city standard. If you tie into a roadway, they make you mill from curb to curb. They don't allow any trenches. in the city of Worcester. They'll allow a trench, but it's gotta sit a season, and then you gotta mill curb to curb. Those are things that need to be implemented into our bylaws or our standard.
Yeah.
Because these trenches are killing, I mean, we can't even get Misty Road paved.
Lou, to Dan's point, to move things along before we run out of time, why don't we just go right into item 7, and when we get to 3, let's talk about making an amendment.
So just to finish up this one, do you guys want to vote on and accept this document now, or do you want a little time to review?
I think
okay
we
with
could use a
accepting
little
it.
more time to review. I haven't had a chance, complete disclosure, I haven't had a chance to read this entire thing, even though I did get the email. It's just been a tough week.
Same here.
Bill, you like a little more time to review?
Yeah, please.
You okay with that?
I'm fine with it. I think that you'll find value in this, and I hope
I don't have a
that you'll-
problem, but when is our next planning board meeting?
Right now, we have it scheduled for the second Wednesday in September, yeah, September 8th. We don't have anything else planned for August.
Okay.
We could throw another one up there in August. We do have it, usually we have it every, 2 a month, but for the summer of the last 2 months, we've shortened it up a little bit. We don't really have, we're not that busy. At the board's pleasure, if you guys want to meet again in August, we can do that. If you guys want to wait till September, we can do that. I
I
mean,
was just, the reason I ask is I leave next Friday.
Yep.
I'd love to have some input in this, but I won't be back in town until September 16th,
okay.
so.
Well, you could certainly, send me written comments and I'll present them.
again?
You could send me your written comments
Okay.
if you wanted to.
Email or text something to us, that would work out great. Or worst case scenario, call one of us, we'll take notes and try to pass
Okay.
them on if you're pressed for time. If you're on a beach somewhere. You can't write. All right, so, yeah, Bill, we'll try to get you comments at the next meeting.
Okay.
These and go
Did
from
we
there.
decide on the meeting date yet, or are we gonna?
Do you guys want to meet again in August, or do you want to wait till September?
September is fine.
All right, do we want to change the date, September, move it up a week or so? I'm not sure whether we.
That's
can
kind
do
of,
it Labor
that
Day.
brings us into conflict with other groups, doesn't it?
Does it?
If we stay to the 2nd and 4th, we're not in conflict with the Conservation Commission and a couple others.
I just,
Yeah, I'm
where are
not-
we with
do you
the
know if there's
45
another
days? Are we,
first
what's,
Wednesday meeting?
What's the end point there?
Well, today was his first day for some of the stuff, so that would only put us at 30 days.
12, we got 19
We're
days.
sort of
this
meeting on the
week,
same
this month
dates now.
left, Approximately. Yeah, okay, I guess we're all set.
Let's just do it in September.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to agenda item number 7, discussion of possible zoning articles for the town meeting. Subs number 1, mill conservation, mill conversion overlay district. Excuse me, glasses aren't working.
So as you know, the attempt at the annual town meeting did not pass. It had over majority, but did not meet the 2/3 majority requirement. The developer apparently is still interested in going forward with the project, which I think is good news. So I do not have a specific proposal at this point in time. I'm assuming it's going to be very similar to what was presented before,
All right.
but I don't have it in writing yet. I think what there were, as you may recall, there were 2 sections. One section was a request to waive the provisions for a mixed-use requirement, and the other was to waive the requirement for affordable housing. I think what they're going to try to do is to incorporate a mixed-use concept into the project, so that first waiver wouldn't be necessary, but they would still ask for the waiver from the affordable housing requirement. So I'm anticipating something like that to come forward, probably very similar to what we got before.
Well, that would be a big help. That would really help convince a lot of people, because I know the Economic Development Committee, I watched some of their meetings where they were discussing this project, and I know that more than one member there seemed to really be in favor of the idea of some sort of commercial endeavor also being in there. So my feeling from watching those meetings, and I think some of the selectmen also, I've seen meetings where the selectmen had discussed it. And 1 or 2 of the selectmen had also, voiced an opinion that would be good to have something in there. And that last preliminary thing that they showed us, there was that like tavern or bar area there. They had it right on the plan, so they obviously had already been probably throwing the idea around. So it would solve a lot of problems, because it would, I think, it would bring a lot more people on board if there was some commercial use in there. And we're not asking for a lot, just something, as opposed to just it being all residential. And I had been in discussion with some people that I knew that used to run out of there when that was the flea market. And they had told me to go look at a couple of things more closely. I'll tell you, if you go down in the back of the building where Tri-Valley is, which is a separate building, it's not part of this project, but just go behind that building into that parking lot and get a look at the back of that building. There's a room on the back of that building there that was described to me as being the boiler room, and the roof on that thing is shot. And I mean, it looks like there's some structural issues there. So I really hope that someone's going to be able to do something at the town meeting in the fall, do some sort of presentation, maybe have some sort of slides or something that they can show to highlight the decrepitude in areas of that building, to try and drive home the fact that if we continue to just say to every developer who comes here and has a plan to do something with this, if we just continue to say to them, no, we're not going to let you do this, we're not going to let you do that, block them so that it just sits there, that it's not going to be long before something really bad happens there.
But this is an excellent opportunity for the town, and it'd be nice if we could find a way to make it work. So as far as this item is concerned, is there any action that we need to take right now? Do we need to wait a language from the town council?
Yeah, the latter, I think. We'll just wait for them to come in with something. We will need to have a public hearing. I think town meeting is scheduled for October 19th, so we would probably want to schedule a public hearing for the second September meeting. So there's no action required just now. Right now, this is just a heads up.
So that brings us to the next item, which was 115 Schofield Ave.
I have had a couple conversations with a marijuana company who wants to put a marijuana business, a retail business at that address, 115 Schofield Ave. It's currently zoned industrial 43, but marijuana uses are only allowed in industrial 130. So in order to do that, they would need a zoning change for that property.
Where is 115 Schofield Ave? Can you give me a point of reference there?
It's near the Ramco.
Right across the street.
So it's is it the old Wagers Express?
Across the street.
Across the street, there's was it some kind of a residential facility or something there now?
Right next door to that.
Right next door to that?
It's like an adult daycare or something.
Yeah.
It's to the right of that.
So where is it? Isn't that where isn't there a German optics manufacturer, Henke?
It's to the left of that.
Soccer.
It's before that. It's in between
So the
that.
thought, Bill, is to they want some
Directly
sort of
across from
a retail outlet there?
Yes. So as you know, there's only 2 allowed under the bylaw. The selectmen have approved the host community agreement for the Chase Ave mill, but we haven't seen anything come before the planning board yet. But assuming they do come forward, that would be 1. So there's 1 license available. And there are a couple of other entities who are also considering doing a retail use in town, but they haven't come forward either. So
So this would be a grow facility and a retail sale facility?
I think so, Steve. I'm not sure about the grow. I know at least retail.
I'd like more information before we.
So
we would just-
the way this works is a landowner can petition to rezone the property. So they have, the owner has the right to request the change. And if they do, then planning board would need to evaluate that and hold a hearing. I haven't gotten anything yet, but I'm pretty sure they're serious about it, and I do expect it to come in.
This would be subject to the same negotiations that selectmen went through with the Ethan Allen property?
Yes, correct.
Assume so. There's a lot of hoops and hurdles before anything actually
Correct.
takes place.
Right.
So if the owner requests a zoning change, how does that differ from spot zoning?
It raises the specter of spot zoning, for sure.
It does what?
It does raise the specter that it's spot zoning. So the difference between industrial 43 and 130 is just really the lot size. The same uses are permitted in both districts in the same manner, except that the 130 district does allow marijuana uses.
Right.
So it's very transparent why they want that change. It's not like it's you know, they're trying to get some particular advantage. They just want to be able to do the marijuana use. So it would be up to the board to advise town meeting whether you consider that spot zoning or whether that's a legitimate use of the zoning power.
And if we made a change to the bylaws to allow these type of facilities in industrial 43 and 130, is that no longer spot zoning? Is that more?
Well, sure, that would be a town-wide, so that
But
would
you
not-
said there's only 2 facilities allowed in town because of according to the bylaws, correct?
Yes. So, I wasn't here at the time when this marijuana bylaw was adopted and why the industrial 130 was chosen as the only district. So you'd have to, rethink that policy and decide whether it made sense to change it.
All right. So no action at this time, we need to think about it and
Mhm.
discuss it next meeting. Is it, the next meeting, if it's in the second Wednesday in September, would only give us basically 2 weeks' time to get everything ready for the warrant. Is that correct, or do we have a little bit longer?
Well, I need to advertise, 14 days in advance. So I need to advertise the second Wednesday of September for the public hearing on the fourth Wednesday.
Okay.
So you would just hold a hearing and people could come and comment on the request. So whenever it comes in, and I'll just, process the public hearing legal notice so that it can go forward.
So if they request it to be changed from industrial 43 to industrial 130, does it only affect the property they own, or does it change the whole district that they're in to 130?
Well, they can't do it now because they're in industrial 43. So they want to change that one property to 130, so it only affects their one property.
So
So,
only- that
okay.
one, the applicant would be asking for his property to be changed.
Right, so all the property around him would remain
43.
industrial 43.
Right.
So that's why it raises the specter of spot zoning. Yeah.
So that would be in effect, if this did not come to fruition, and this facility was not actually located at in that particular lot, that change would still be in effect for that property, because it was pertained to the owner as opposed to the facility, right?
Yeah, the land would be rezoned.
So it would be kind of like an island, if you will, forever.
Yeah, so.
But again, the only advantage is the ability to do marijuana uses.
I'm sorry?
The only advantage to the 130 over the 43 district is the ability to do marijuana uses,
Right.
because everything else is the same except for the lot
But
size.
there's no guarantees. Again, there's a lot of hoops and hurdles that they have to go through in order to get approval from the state.
I like Dan's solution, or proposed solution, much better, which is amend the law that says that it can only be in industrial 130 to say that you can have it in industrial 130 and industrial 43. That's what I think they should do.
I'd like to look at the zoning map, I don't have it out, just to find out what that would be affecting, but if this is the second facility in the town, and if it goes through, then theoretically, we don't have to worry about the rest of them.
Yeah.
I sh-
That-
should
that's
also-
all industrial down there.
I should also mention that the way the Ethan Allen property was approved is that those uses are also allowed in the mill overlay district. And the
Thank you.
Chase Ave property is in a mill overlay.
Okay.
So those are the only two districts you can do marijuana uses. The mill overlay and the industrial 130.
All right. So we will, again, wait until we get the actual application before we can take any action on this?
Yeah, there's no action required on your part at this time.
And then our fame number 3, planning board suggestions for zoning amendments. So is this, just trying to, is this something that you could summarize? I mean, would you be amenable to actually looking through, finding out where the outdated specs are, and then?
I would love to.
There are 3 items that you brought up at the Lion Estates meeting that stuck in my head, and I was like, boy, that just seems like a no-brainer. The first one, you brought it up again tonight, the whole idea that if you're going to tie in to services on an existing main road, that instead of cutting out that little strip that they do, which always settles and leaves it at whoop-de-doo, that they have to do the full width. Now, you know how to put it into legal mumbo-jumbo language better than me.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, you know what I mean, though.
Flattering me.
Dan, if I may, the subdivision regulations are regulations that the board has the power to adopt without town meeting. So if you wanted to change subdivision standards, you can do that by simple vote of the board. It doesn't need to go to town meeting.
Oh, really?
The zoning bylaw requires,
I'm
Could
sorry,
you
I didn't-
email those to me?
sure,
I'll-
the zoning bylaw does require a town meeting vote.
And I'll start going through them and
Okay?
marking it up.
Yeah, so one was the tie-in thing. The other one was the granite curbing.
Yeah.
You wanted to put, I forgot what it was.
They wanted to do asphalt
Asphalt.
Yeah,
curving.
right, and you said, no, that should be granite.
Always be granite.
Right. So
Lou, do you want
that's
a
number
paper copy
two.
or a digital?
It doesn't matter.
Okay,
I'll take either or.
okay.
And number three, I wasn't quite as sure about, but you kind of sold me on it that night, was the super pave.
It keeps paving people honest. Super pave.
So is that something that we could, as a board,
Yeah,
change and say that we require?
sure.
That and also like on sidewalks, the handicap ramps, we should make, I'll put my edits in there, but those should always be in concrete. Because asphalt shifts so much that the concrete is more of a standard. At least when that wheelchair gets on that landing and they gotta turn, you don't have to worry about it tipping over. That's why these, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that what was it we talking about early, the complete street policy, that's something that's being forced down by the state, right? They're trying to get these towns up to date on sidewalks and ADA compliance.
Yeah, they're not forcing you, but they're very much behind the whole
Yeah,
program.
and that's where the money's coming from, because I know a lot of towns, when we did road work, we did subdivisions, the planning board was very concerned that they did not meet the standards, because they were worried about getting money from the state. They're like, we gotta meet these standards, or we're gonna not get money from the state. So that's why a lot of towns, more east, that have more active planner, full-time planners and stuff, they really go out and check these things with slope meters and everything else. They're really checking.
Yeah,
They're concerned about their funding from the state.
and they don't budge on the requirements. It is what it is, and that's it.
Yeah, they're
No
not worried about how
waivers.
much money it costs the builder.
No,
It's all about the best interest of the city or the town.
they don't do the waiver for this, waiver for that. This is what it is, and that's it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, possibility here for some benchmarking? I mean, is there some town or municipality that we can point to as the gold standard in terms of what zoning regulations should be in the 21st century, and not necessarily reinventing the wheel for ourselves, but, well, I don't know, one of
No, I
our
think that's-
presidential candidates was in favor of plagiarizing not too many years ago.
Yeah,
I
well,
thought
that's the
maybe-
way it's done. You try to find good models and base your own.
I'm sorry? I can't hear very well with a mask.
Yeah,
It's affecting
I
my
have a hard
hearing
time
as well as
speaking
my
through this,
speech.
too. So, yeah, no, that's the way it's done. You do try to research good examples and take what you like and adapt them for your own use.
I think the city of Worcester's done a great job.
Okay. I was thinking more in terms of a comparable community. I don't know whether the
Millbury
city of
does a
Worcester is
good
something
job
we
too.
can.
Millbury, Grafton,
Millbury, Grafton, yeah,
they're very good. Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury.
Since we're talking about complete streets, I'd like to look at towns that have incorporated those kinds of standards, too, into their regulations.
Millbury, Grafton, okay.
All right, do we want to move into the subdivisions? Talk about the completion of all of them. Fairpont Estates, anything?
So I understand there was some top coat paving done up there recently. So I think Mr. Sakara would be interested in bringing up, the portion of the road that's been completed to town meeting for acceptance. I have not talked to him directly yet, but I believe that's kind of the next thing that he's thinking of.
Okay.
So I think he's, it's good to see that he's working on the road.
Got any trees in phase one yet?
What's that?
Got any trees planted on phase 1 yet?
I haven't been up there for a while, I don't know.
Comes up every time.
Rocky Hill?
Nothing on that one.
Okay. Piasta?
I talked to Jonathan Andrelevitz from Ramco, who's the developer of that roadway, just to get an update on where we're at with that project. I believe it's done or nearly done, and that they also will be coming forward with the street acceptance process. So I'd like to be, for these that are going forward, I'd like to get that process underway soon. There was a January filing deadline, so I'd like to be sure that they're all in compliance with the town bylaw and policies for that. So I'm trying to get that process kick-started now with some of these things that look like they're ready to go forward.
Okay, excellent. Country View?
The Water and Sewer Department did install the riser to raise the elevation of the sewer pump station. They've also loamed and seeded around there
When was that completed?
last week, I believe.
I wonder, has anybody gone out and looked at that? We just had that tropical storm come through here. That was like a perfect opportunity to see how that's working out now.
Yes, I haven't, the Water and Sewer Superintendent has been out there. I haven't gotten an update from him on how it's held up, but they did the work, and I'm sure they're watching it carefully. So what remains there is the status of the pumps. The superintendent is concerned about that one of the pumps may be failing, so we are trying to schedule an electrician to go in there and examine the pump and determine whether it's failing or whether it's okay.
Okay.
So that's the next step for that.
Tobin Farms?
Again, we're going to try to bring that forward to town meeting. We tried last year a number of things we just couldn't get done in time. So again, we'll be, pushing that hard to get everything in time so that we can
Can
get
I
that
ask
to
a
town
question
meeting.
about Tobin Farms? Because I was just in there like a few days ago, and actually over the weekend. I remember there was a mention about a guardrail there, and I happened to notice that there is a section of, there's the wooden posts and the big wooden guardrail. There's a section of that missing. I don't know if it's never been installed, but I think that's the guardrail that came up in conversation in Tobin Farms. And I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, why is that?
That was
How
an
hard is it
issue,
to
that was one of the issues why it didn't get forward to town meeting last spring. So that has to be completed before we can go forward with it. The developer said he would do it. I don't know whether he has or not.
Okay, well, as of this weekend, hasn't been done.
Okay?
I had eyes on it, so.
Yeah, he
And
seemed,
I'm not 100% sure about this, but it seems to me that there is some kind of a waterway that goes under two of the streets, and there should be a guardrail on either side of the street. Two examples. So the one that you were looking at there's 4 or 5 missing. The posts are there, but the wood infill is gone. And on the other one, and I could be getting it wrong, I think there's only guardrail on one side.
Yeah, and actually, I think the one that I was looking at, I think there's like a section, there's a few posts, and there's one piece of guardrail, and then all of a sudden, there's a few posts with no guardrail.
Right.
And it's like,
So it's not just, the point I'm trying to make is it's not just the completion of the one guardrail where you see the posts.
Okay.
Just the infill. There's actually a whole section missing. I believe it's on the other road.
oh, okay. All right. I went in on the same road, turned around and came back out. I was just curious because they built a new house up there, so.
That was one of their requirements for town approval of the road, right? Was to complete the guardrail. So, does he have like a time span to complete it?
I know that the highway superintendent, Vinnie Paletta, had been out a couple of times to inspect that. And there was some paperwork that he was reviewing, both the approval and an agreement to waive some of the standards of the bylaw. So he wanted to be sure that everything was done that was supposed to be done, and things that were waived, would be okay.
Any inspections associated with site plans?
Lions Estates, before we go on. So as you know, that's underway now. They've cleared the subbase for the road. They staked the center line, they put in the erosion control measures. So that project, construction is underway. We did have the pre-construction conference, and we got the go-ahead to proceed for that project. Graves will be doing the inspections for that work. The conservation agent will be doing the inspections for the order of conditions that the Conservation Commission approved. So we'll be, on top of that and make sure that everything gets done. The developer said that he's had very good material to work with, a lot of good loam on the property, so he hasn't had any difficulty in terms of putting in this, digging the road base out. So things are going
Excellent.
well so far.
Good news. So that was Lions Estates, so we're going to go to inspections associated with site plans, or was that kind of rolled into the?
No, I wanted to mention that Richard had asked about 55 Dudley Oxford Road, the solar project up there. Some of the trees had died and were removed, and the decision says they must be replaced. So I've been in contact with Nexamp about that. They said they'd be going out there this week to replant the trees. So I think that should be done soon. So my sense is that that project is completed. I'm trying to find out from the building commissioner whether he issued a certificate of compliance. If he did, I think we can close that project out, return whatever money's left in escrow, and, consider that done. So I think it's in pretty good shape. I'm just trying to pursue that to make sure everything is done.
Planner's plate?
I wanted to announce that the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission included the town of Dudley in a community development block grant application for CARES Act funding. And what that means is that small businesses in the town are eligible for funding as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So any business of 5 or fewer employees is eligible for up to $10,000 for business purposes for their business. Eligible activities include rent, staffing, and utilities. Cannot be used for major equipment purchases, real estate, things of that sort. And the employees have to be low or moderate income. So the CMRPC is working with the state on the requirements for that process. I understand that by mid-September, they'll be accepting applications. So any business in Dudley that thinks they would qualify, we'd really welcome them to come forward, get up to $10,000 to keep their business moving forward. So I think that's a very good thing for the town to take advantage of.
Yep.
For those that are eligible. I'm going to be on vacation next week, so I thought I'd mention that. In case you have anything, let me know this week or when I come back the following week. I also wanted to ask, Lou, I believe you're the delegate to the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. Are you still?
I get the emails, but you haven't been having any meetings.
Okay, because of the COVID. I just wanted to be sure that you're still the delegate for the planning board to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
For now.
So that's all I had under planner's plate.
Any comments from the planning board?
Has anybody been by 263 West Main Street lately? I'm just curious what's if anything's happening there.
Yeah, look, he's got all the vans that are there. There's not many, and he's got them right behind the shop. They're not out in the back anymore. Other than that, I haven't seen anything going on there.
I would like to mention one thing, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I've been in touch with Bill back and forth for several weeks now, and there is that solar array in front of Shepherd Hill, and as you may have noticed driving by there, there is supposed to be a barrier in terms of pine trees. A number of them have died, have been dead for some time now. Apparently, Bill has been successful in contacting a gentleman by the name of Eric Jacobson with Nexamp, and it sounds like something may be done relatively soon.
Right.
Regards to replacing those dead trees.
That was 2
With,
items ago, wasn't it?
right.
Yeah, you just mentioned that.
Oh, okay. I can't hear a bloody thing. I mean, everything comes through here like we're talking underwater. I don't know whether it's this combination of things or these things or
Yeah,
whatever.
Ask
And
me
then
the
there's this-
HVAC in the background.
Whatever that goes on every now and again where the building or the roof is taking off.
And there's an
But,
echo whenever Bill speaks. There's an echo, so it bounces
Yeah.
back, so I'm getting like this double.
Hopefully that, what looks like a dead tree collection will be modified.
Getting trees planted in this town apparently is a very difficult thing.
Thanks for your efforts on those.
Getting them to stay up can be difficult too.
it has been pretty dry out, though.
Well, yeah, but if you look, Bill, those trees have been dead for a lot longer than this drough's been done. I mean, they predate COVID-19 and then some.
I just been watching landscapers going around mowing the burnt grass
Yeah.
everywhere. and- How do you charge people for that?
Just to bear witness, I saw that today. There were 3 guys out there with leaf blowers, and all they were doing was blowing dust.
Dust, yeah.
It was crazy. I don't know what the respiratory systems will look like after having done that, but probably not good.
Anything else from the planning board? Comments from the audience?
Lively crowd tonight.
Yep. So next meeting, we said would be the 8th of September.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, it looks like if I read this, we're indicating August 26th. Next scheduled
Well, that
meeting.
would be we usually meet twice a month.
Okay.
And I think we voted in June only to meet once a month in
Right.
July and
So this
August.
has not been updated for...
Yep, exactly.
Chairman, if it's in order, I would make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, not yet.
Any vouchers?
I'd just like to point out the next meeting is the 9th of September.
The 9th?
Yep, that's the
Yes,
first,
I got the Tuesday,
the
excuse me.
second Wednesday,
Sorry.
yep.
9/9.
9/9.
And I do have one voucher for you to approve.
Okay.
I've been looking at the escrow accounts that are still, that we're carrying, and this one would close out the Lyons Estates definitive plan review escrow. We're establishing a new account for the construction supervision. David Haynes has sold the property to Galaxy Development. So
who?
It's called Galaxy,
Okay.
is the developer of the property. Tom Ravane is the contractor for that project. So this would close out the Haynes account. He's entitled to the money that's left over because we've finished that review. As I mentioned, we'll be establishing a new account. We've asked for $4,000 to cover Gray's engineering expenses. I'm expecting the check very shortly for that.
Okay.
So if you would agree to close out that escrow account for Haynes. Transfer $251.68 to Haynes.
Lou, you were saying you're not going to be here for the 9th, the meeting on the 9th?
I will not, I will be back into town till the following week.
Okay, all right. I think I'm going to be able to be available, pretty sure. That's right
Just sign
after,
any place?
Yes, anywhere is fine.
it's right after Labor Day weekend, so I know that we're gone that weekend, and my wife was already thinking about maybe extending that stay.
I gotta talk to you about my schedule after this.
Did I sign this, or is the clerk signing?
Oh, it's Steve, yeah, Steve should have signed that. Wrong direction.
Yeah, with the.
Make sure you do that, make sure you go through that stuff before you go.
Say again?
Make sure you go through that stuff before you go.
I'm very concerned about making sure my favorite town of Dudley's taken care of.
Thank you.
So I think this would be an appropriate time for a possible closure of the meeting. Adjournment, wouldn't it?
Chairman, I'd make a motion that we adjourn.
I have a
Second.
motion and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Thank you once
Great,
again,
thank you.
gentlemen. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Michelle.